Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm sharing day 4 of the Spellbinders Crafty Advent Calendar for 2025. Every day for the first 24 days of December, I'm going to be sharing one of the windows from this calendar and then showing you what the product is in there and then creating something with it. And usually it's a card. I don't know whether I'm going to be changing from that, but often I tend to focus on creating cards. All of the videos from the Crafty Advent Calendar for 2025 are in the same playlist. So if you happen to miss a day, you can always go back and watch the ones that you've missed. So today we have another die set, and I have to admit, I had to ask to see if anyone else knew what this was. It's actually a stamp block with several different sentiments that you can choose from. One of them says, thank you. That's the one that I end up using. There's another one that says, love you. And then I think the other one says, hello you. There's 3 different sentiments that you can choose from. And I love when there are different sentiments that you can pick and choose from. So I'm going to choose the thank you for this. And I have the thank you die cut out of white cardstock. The frame for the sentiment is die cut out of matte rose gold cardstock. And then the stamp block is cut out of fawn cardstock. And I'm doing a little bit of ink blending on it with some vintage photo distress ink. I'm going to create a very, very simple card here, just using the die set with some cardstock and ink. You can always tie in other things, like there's the Sharon Scissors die set that I think would be fun to include with this, to have, say, a card with a stamp block as well as a scissors. I opt, when I'm doing the Crafty Advent Calendar, I try to stick to only products that are in the calendar aside from paper and ink. There's the odd time I might add something in, but usually I try to just focus on just what's in the Advent calendar. It's a little challenge for myself, and it's also nice for those that don't necessarily have a lot of supplies to fall back on. I kind of like to show ways to just make do with what is in the calendar. So with everything glued together, and I glued it together with some Barely Art glue in a fine tip bottle, I have my acrylic block sitting on top of it to hold everything nice and flat. I can work on my card base. I have a mat here out of fawn cardstock. It is trimmed to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Just doing a little bit of light ink blending on around the outside edges with that vintage photo distress ink, just to tie it in with the inking on the stamp block. I'm also going to do the ink blending on my white piece of cardstock here. This one is trimmed to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And once again, the ink blending, it frames it in nicely. To me, it adds a little bit of warmth to it. It just makes it a little bit softer, and it ties in with the ink blending on my die cuts as well. I don't always do ink blending on my backgrounds or ink blending around my backgrounds, but sometimes it just seems like it needs it. And because there's not a whole lot else on this card, I just felt it needed a little bit of that ink blending to kind of soften it and frame it. So I have an A2 card base here, just a white card base. I'm gluing on the ink blended fawn matte piece as well as my ink blended white piece here, and then I can glue on the stamp block as well as that thank you sentiment. Now I'm going to do them a little bit crooked and cockeyed just to add a little bit of interest to the card, but you can obviously line them up straight if you would like to as well. I'm going to tuck in the corner of that thank you right below that stamp block, and that's all I'm doing to this card. It's a very simple card to do. If you wanted to add a little bit more texture to it, you could always do a little bit of embossing on that background, but I opted to keep it nice and clean and simple for this one. Thank you so much for joining me for day 4 of the Crafty Advent Calendar. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll share what's in day 5 and create something with it. Have a fantastic day.